So we are going to use this particular application for our testing. So as we are going to use this application, I need to update the URL in the configuration.properties file, because like we are passing the test environment from the property file. So we should not manually edit the URL, which is nothing but we should not edit the URL inside the class file. Instead of it, like we should update the URL in the property file. So just I'm updating the respective URL, and I'm going to run in the browser called as an Chrome. So now let's automate n number of different scenarios. So if we take an Amazon, like we can search the particular product, or pose that like we can click on the search icon and then we can select any of the result. But as a first step, what I'm going to do, I'm going to filter it up. So filter in the sense, I'm going to click on this all, and I'm just going to select the product as a baby product. So which means as I'm going to search the baby product, I'm voluntarily selecting the value from this particular drop down. So generally this we call it as a drop down. So
So Aravind, can you hear me?
yeah, just now able to hear.
Okay, because I tried connecting before once or twice. So I have a question
Hmm,
regarding the significance of static and non-static. So in the
hmm.
real time, when we can actually use the static and non-static method.
That I will explain in the upcoming sessions.
Okay,
Okay.
and one more thing, even when we can use the extend or
Hmm.
when we can create a new object.
Both are same, basically in this case, um, it can be achieved in two ways. So either we can use the inheritance or we can create an object as well. So in order to avoid the object creation, so we are going to see one more concept called as a constructor. So with the constructor, like we will be avoiding this concept, but you will get to know the real usage of the inheritance in the reusable class file. So I'm going, we as of now, like we have created only one reusable file, but in the upcoming sessions, like we are going to create the page objects. So when the page object comes to a picture, the inheritance play the role. So during the time, like you will get to know the difference, where to use the inheritance and where to create an object and where to use the static methods. So all the details you will get to know while creating the page objects.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so whatever the things we are going to discuss, everything is interrelated. So because I'm taking the session in that way, so please try to understand the concept. Like if you are unable to grasp, please let me know. I will try to explain in some other alternative way. Okay, now let's step into the Selenium part. So the Selenium, in the sense, with the help of the Selenium, we are going to interact with the web page. So in a web page, we are having the various things. So various things, like we may have the text box, we may have the buttons, etc. And sometimes, like we will be having the drop down. So what is meant by drop down? So drop down is nothing but it will hold some set of values. Okay, so drop down will hold some set of values. So if I just click on this drop down, it holds some set of values like all category, Alexa scale, etc. And even like we are here, we are having some drop down. So inside the drop down, so we are having some set of values called as an English, Tamil, Hindi, etc. And when something is mentioned in the round, we call it as a radio button. So which means in a web page, we are having n number of different things, like text box, then button, then we have the radio button, and in few web pages we will be having the checkboxes, and just we have seen like we are having the drop down, and we will be having something called as an hyperlinks. So hyperlinks in the sense, if you just click on the Salesforce page, like here you are able to see the hyperlinks. So like hyperlink is nothing but we call it, generally we call it as a link. So if I hover over the particular link, you could see it is changing as a hand symbol. So whenever I perform any operation, so it will navigate from one page to other page. So whenever something is navigating from one page to other page, we call it as a link. Technically, we call it as a hyperlink, and these we call it as in checkbox. So even like if you search something in Google, so like we can see like for example, let me search my city like Madurai. So we could see a number of result related to the Madurai, and when I click on this Wikipedia, so it will navigate from one page to the other page, so which we call it as an link or hyperlink. Okay, so these are the different things which are available in the web pages, and we are going to handle each and everything. So you guys are aware like how we can inject the value in the text box and how to click this button. So in order to inject the value, so we have used the send keys, and in order to click on the search icon, so we have used the method called as send click. So in similar way, like we are going to handle this drop down. So drop down is nothing but like it will hold some set of values. And how we are going to handle the drop down? So generally there are two types of drop down. So one is like static drop down, and next is like a non-static drop down. So you all aware like what is the meaning of static and what is the meaning of non-static. So static is generally nothing but we call it as a fixed. So if the car is parked, we can say the car is in static position. So if you are driving the car, so that is a dynamic movement is happening. So whenever the dynamic movement is happening, like we call it as a non-static. Okay, so which means like the drop down can contain fixed set of values, as well as it may contain a dynamic values. So how we will get to know so whether it is a static dropdown or non-static dropdown? For easy understanding, let me just pick one more URL called as an book.spicejet.com, because like we can easily relate what is meant by static and non-static here. So for example, here in this page, we are having n number of drop down. So we are having the from drop down, to drop down, this passenger drop down, currency drop down. So if I just click on this currency drop down, I could see a number of values like select BDD, CAD, UR, etc. And inside the from drop down, we are having a number of values. So let's say inside the from, I'm just selecting the city called as an Agra. And if you look on the to drop down, it is having the result called as in Delhi, Jaipur, etc. But now instead of Agra, what I'm going to do, I'm selecting as a Chennai. So if I'm selecting as a Chennai, you could see the values which are present in the two drop down are changing dynamically. So which means based upon the user input, the drop down value is getting updated. So like whenever I select a from drop down, so based upon the input, like the drop down value get changed. So like if I just select the Durgapur, and if I see the two drop down, so the result may be changed, which means like the drop down values are getting changed dynamically. So we call this dynamic value change as a non-static. So now irrespective of any action, so I'm selecting the from to and I'm selecting the date. So whatever the operation I'm doing over this web page, and if I just look on this currency drop down, so the values inside the currency drop down remains as it is. So this we call it as an like static drop downs. Okay, so but how we can conclude whether it is a static drop down or a non-static drop down in the sense only with the help of the tags. So in the HTML structure, we are having the tags. Only with the help of the tags, so we can identify or we can conclude whether it is a static drop down or non-static drop down. So generally the static dropdown will start with the tag called as an select. So if something start with the select tag, we call a static dropdown, and other than select are called as an non-static. So either you can observe the behavior and you can conclude whether it is a static or non-static, or else like you can just right click and inspect and you can just look over the tag name. So let's say I'm just right clicking and inspecting this currency dropdown. So if I inspect this currency drop down, okay, so it will start with the tag called as an select. You could see it is starting with the tag called as an select. So if it start with the select tag, so we call it as a static dropdown. And if I right click and insert this from dropdown or to dropdown, it is starting with the tag called as an input. So which is nothing but other than select. The other than select are called as a dynamic dropdown. So now let me just right click and insert and this to dropdown as well. It is starting with the tag called as an input. So one and only if it start with the select tag, we call it as an static dropdown, and other than select tag, we call it as an dynamic dropdown. So a web page can contain either the static dropdown or the dynamic dropdown, or it may contain both static as well as the dynamic dropdown. Okay, so now let us go back to the Amazon, and I'm just right clicking and inspecting over the particular dropdown. And let's say what is the tag it is starting. So it is tag, it's starting with a tag called as an select. So if it is of an select, we can conclude this as a dynamic dropdown. See, sorry, it's as an static dropdown. So the handling of static dropdown is like very easy. Like in order to handle this static dropdown, the Selenium is providing some special class called as an select class. Okay, so inside the Selenium we are having the class called as an select class. With the help of the select class, we can easily handle the static dropdown. So I have told already, like if we need to use one class in another class, we should create an object for the same. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an object for the select class, and we should give some variable name. So we are going to like handle the category, right? So I can say give the variable name as a category is equal to new of select. Okay, so whenever we create an object, it technically indicates like you are initializing the variables and the methods which is present inside the select class. So which means the class always contains method, and inside the select class we are having three different methods called as an select by value, select by index, select by visible text. Okay, so these are the three different methods which are available inside the select class, and with the help of this method we are going to handle the static dropdown. So in a Selenium, the static dropdown can be handled only with the help of the select class. So now let us try to implement the same in our coding. So like we are going to automate the end-to-end scenario. So in which the first step is like we are going to select the category, and post that like we are going to enter the keywords, and then we are going to click on the search button, and then we are going to select the result, and we are going to add in the cart, and then like we are going to do some validation. So just we are going to do the one entire flow, and while doing this entire flow, so we may deal with n number of different things. So in which the first thing is like drop down. So now let me implement the same in the framework. So the first step in the framework is like as I told, so we need to do the test design. Okay, so we have already created the feature file for the Amazon, like we are going to validate the like Amazon application, or I can say so the validation of Amazon application. So in which the scenario which we are going to automate here is like, so we are going to like select the category, we are going to search the product, and then we are going to verify the search result. So let's say we are going to verify the search result. So verify the search result. Okay, or we can say like search result validation. So in which, so in order to do this search result validation, so what is the prerequisite? So the prerequisite is like we need to select the category, and then like the user action is like we are going to enter the search keyword, and then we are going to do the validation. So I'm just giving the pre-request. So given user selects the category in the home page. Okay, so we are going to select the category, and post that like we are going to derive the test step. So here we are not giving the browser invocation as the prerequisite, because like whenever we run any scenario, the hooks call will happen. It will automatically run the browser invocation part. So now we have created the given step, and whenever like you are creating the steps, so we need to map with the help of the annotation. So let's say I'm creating one more step definition specifically to maintain the Amazon code. So I'm just creating the new class, and I'm just creating the Amazon code. And another thing, so whenever if it is of a step definition, you please use the keyword called as an steps at the end, so that we can differentiate the things, so that we can differentiate so what is the reusable method, and what is the corresponding step definitions. As it is going to hold the step definitions, I am just amending the keyword called as an steps at the end. So even like here I can refactor it, and I can add the keyword called as an steps at the end. So these are like few standards which will help us to understand the respective class and methods in a easier way. So now we are going to map it up. So how we are going to map it up? With the help of the annotation. As it is of a given statement, I'm using the given annotation, and I'm just copy pasting the respective statement. Either you can create from the auto suggestion, but I'm just going in a flow, and post mapping with the respective annotation. We should create a immediate method. So here we are creating the non-static method in a real time. So pretty much we will be creating only the non-static method, because like we are going to purely implement the concept of the constructors. So like the constructor will work only for the non-static method, as constructor is the heart of the Java. So like we always create a non-static method. So here I am just creating the non-static method. So public void, so like select category. So I'm just giving the meaningful method name, and here I'm giving the access modifier as a public. So when it is of an public, it can be reused anywhere inside the project, which is nothing but you can access in the same package or in the different package. Now I'm hovering over this given statement. I'm just clicking on the import. So now the errors is rectified. So inside which we are going to do the coding. So how we are going to handle this particular dropdown? We confirmed this particular dropdown as a static. The static dropdown can be handled with the help of the select class. So in order to use one class in other class, we need to create an object. I'm just going to create the object for the select class. Okay, so select, I'm giving the variable name. So let it be of an category is equal to new of select. So if you face any error in the select class, so just hover your mouse. Once you hover your the mouse, you could be able to see the import statement. For example, like if there is an error in the select class, so just hover over the mouse and just click on the import class. The appropriate import statement will be added up, and if you just look on the import statement, like you will get to know so whether it is provided by the Cucumber, or whether it is in Java, or it is in Selenium. So the select class is offered with by the Selenium packages. Okay, so now we have created the object. Post creating the object, we are getting an error. So if you hover over the error, it says expected one arguments but found zero. So it is asking us to inject an input. So what kind of input it is asking us to inject? So like it says like inject a web element. So if it is of a string, okay, so we can mention something in the double quotes, and we can inject the respective input. But it is asking us to inject the web element. So what does mean by web element? So generally, like we are having something called as an WebDriver. So whenever we are using the WebDriver, so what this WebDriver used to do in the sense, it will find the respective element in the entire DOM structure. Okay, entire DOM structure or the HTML structure. So which means like it will scan the element from the, like starting from the HTML node, which is nothing but from the head to tail. So like with the WebDriver always scan the element from the head to tail, which is nothing but it is going to find the element in the respective in the entire DOM structure. But here we are going to like do the operation, so which is nothing but we are going to select some drop down values. So when we right click and inspect, this is the node which is highlighting, and this node is expandable. If I expand this node, okay, this select tag will act as a parent node. This parent node contains many child node, so called as an option, and inside the child node, the corresponding values are get stored. If you see the child node 1, so it is having the drop-down value called as an all category. In the child node 2, it is having the Alexa skill and Amazon device. If you try to compare the same, yes, it is having the all category, Alexa skill, Amazon device, Amazon fashion, etc. So which means like we are going to like select the values which are specifically present inside this node. Okay, so which means we are going to do some action only inside this node called as an select aerial described by is equal to search dropdown. So when you are going to do some operation in only in a specific node, so we need the help of the web element. By using the web element, so technically we are restricting the usage of the WebDriver. So we are telling to the WebDriver, so don't search the element in the entire DOM structure. Instead of it, so just search in the specific node. So whenever you are going to perform an operation only inside the specific node, then you need to create a web element. Okay, so whenever the web element is created, it technically indicates like we are going to do some action only inside the specific node, which is nothing but like if I expand this select, it is acting as a parent. We are going to do the operation only inside this particular node. Okay, so the select tag starts from there and it is terminating at the below. So we are going to do operation only inside the select node. So whenever we are going to do some specific operation in a specific node, we need to create a web element. So now this is the node which we are going to do, right? So in this node we need to pick any of the attribute. So let's say like we are having the attribute called as an aerial described by or class or etc. So we are having id as well. So let me just pick the id and I'm going to see whether the id is unique or not. Either you can directly search this attribute value, so or if it is often difficult for you to iterate or if it is difficult to identify whether it is unique or not, then you can convert this an export syntax. Now if you could see, when I search with the string, it is showing 3 results, but the first result is present inside the for attribute. But whenever we use the id locator, it specifically look only inside the id attribute, right? So we can ignore it up. And second result, let's see, so it is present inside the second result, which is nothing but technically it is going to act as the first result, and we don't need to care about the third result, because like anyhow the find element will always pick the first matching element. So we can conclude this id attribute as a unique value. Or if it is like more confusing, then what you can do, like you can just convert it as an hpath. Okay, so better like it's as a beginner, so it is better to convert it as an hpath. Okay, so now if I convert it as an hpath, like I could see like it is showing as an one of one result. Okay, so now I'm going to create the web element for it. So in order to create a web element, so we should create a use the keyword called as an web element. Even this web element is an interface, so I will explain what is mean by interface in the later part. I'm using the keyword called as a web element, and we are creating the web element for the specific node called as an select category. So I'm just giving the meaningful name called as an select category element. Okay, and then we are going to tell the web driver, like moving forward, find the element only inside that specific node. So we need to highlight which node we need to use. So I can say driver dot. So I'm just implementing it. So when I type driver dot something, we are not getting any suggestion because like we haven't injected the knowledge of the base code to this particular code. I'm just adding the inheritance. So extents of what is the class name which we have given here. So it is like base code, right? So I can just type it as an base code. So now I have inherited the knowledge of WebDriver to this other class. So now if I type driver, I could be able to see. So I'm just going to use driver dot find element. Okay, by dot id. So what is the id value which we have? We call it as a search dropdown bats, and I am entering this search dropdown. So in which like we are not going to perform any operation. So we are not going to pass the send keys, or we are not going to do the click operation. So at the end, I'm just adding the semicolon. So which means like we have created the web element. So and we are going to pass this web element. So as we have created the web element, so moving forward, when I use this select class, so it will particularly search the element only inside this web element, which is nothing but only inside the specific node. So whenever we need to find something inside the specific node, so we should create a web element. Okay, so like what is the need of the web element in the sense, so whenever we need to find something inside the specific node, like we should create a web element. By using the web element, we are restricting the usage of the web driver. So rather than finding the element in the entire DOM structure, we are going to do some certain operation in a specific node. So whenever the specific node comes into the picture, like we need to create a web element. So I have created the web element with the help of the keyword called as a web driver. I have given the variable name, and I'm assigning the node with the help of the web driver. So this is the specific node which we are going to access, right? I'm picking the locator property. So you can use any of the locator property, and I'm just assigning the locator property to the web element, and I'm pausing the web element inside the select class, which means whenever we use the select class will find the element only inside this select node. Okay, so now the class contains method. So the select class contain three different methods. One is called as an select by index, select by value, and select by visible text. So what is the variable name of the particular class? We call it as a category. When I say category dot, so whatever the method which is available, so select by index, select by value, and select by visible text will be available, and everything is a parameterized method, which is nothing but we need to pass an argument. So we need to pass an input. So in which the first method which I'm going to use here is like called as an select by index. I'm just picking the select by index method. So the select by index method will accept the integer as a input, which is nothing but we need to pass the index value. So what is meant by index value? So like this select is going to act as a parent. The parent contain multiple child, and you could see the tag name of the child. Each and every child start with the option, and it is holding some values. So which means we are going to access this child node, and we need to give the index of it. So generally the index will start from the 0. So this is 0th index, first index, second index, third index. If I need to select this Amazon fashion, I need to give index as 3. Okay, I'm just giving the index as 3. Now let us check whether it is working as expected or not. So we need to run that particular scenario. So how we are going to run this particular scenario? So we can add some unique tag. So let's say as it is of an Amazon scenario 1, so I'm just using am01 tag, and we need to copy the tag, and we should place the tag in the runner file, and make sure like you have updated the configuration.properties as well, because like we are going to retrieve the environment from the config.property files. So now let me just run this runner file, and let's see so whether it is selecting the value from the particular dropdown or not. So it is invoking the test. So you could see it has picked the feature file called as an validation of Amazon application, and it has picked the scenario called as an search result validation, and it is invoking the browser. Oh, it's asking for security reason. So the normally the captcha can't be automated. So in the real time, so we won't get any captcha over here. So only in while we are practicing, we may able to see the captcha. So the captcha cannot be automated with the help of the Selenium. But in the real time, as we are using the test environment in the project, so they will disable all the authentication. So we won't get any OTP or an captcha kind of things, but only in the real time world, which is nothing but only if the application is delivered to the customer, so they will enable the authentication. So during the testing phase, the authentication will be disabled. So now you could see it is throwing the exception called as a no such element exception. So the reason is like as captcha page is disabled, so for sure like it may unable to find the respective element called as an ID search bar. That is why we are getting the error. Now let me try to run the script once again, and I guess this time the captcha won't come. Let us check. Yeah, the captcha is not getting, and you could see the drop down value, it is changed to Amazon fashion. So the reason is like we have provided the in-text value. Okay, so which means like you need to count the number of nodes which are available, and you can provide the respective node index. So if you need to select these apps and games, so you should give the index value which is present, and you could count from starting from the 0. So 0 1 2, like based upon that, pick the respective index, and you can use the index value in the coding. So initially like we are selecting the drop down value with the help of the index. So either we can select by the index, or this select class contain different methods, right? So like there is another method called as an visible text. Okay, I'm just using that method called as an category dot select by visible text. So even the visible text is a parameterized method. It will accept string as an input. So what is meant by visible text? So visible text is nothing but the value which is populating in the drop down is called as a visible text, or in another language, whatever the text value which is mapped in the respective node, we call it as an visible text. So whatever the text which is available here is going to populate in the drop down value, right? So either you can give the text value. So for example, if I need to select this beauty, I can pass the respective text value inside it, and now if I run the same test, now we are handling the drop down with the help of the visible text. Okay, so now the browser is invoked, and you could see the drop down value. So the beauty has been selected. So how the beauty has been selected in the sense with the help of the visible text. So the user can use any of the method. So they either they can use the select by index, or they can use the select by text value, and there is an another method, so which we call it as an value. Okay, select by value. So basically this select by value will specifically look for a value attribute. Okay, so this select by intents we are selecting purely with the help of the intents, and the visible text we are passing the text value which is present in the drop down. So whereas the select by value will work with the help of the value attribute. So let's say like this is the parent node. So only for this parent node we have created the web element. So which means whatever the action we are going to do, so we are going to perform only inside this particular node as the web element is created. So by creating the web element we are restricting the usage of the WebDriver, and inside this particular node we are having n number of nodes, and we are going to access this node and we are going to perform the action. And how this node can be accessed in the sense, either you can use the int text or you can use the text value, and another is like you can use the value attribute. Like if you see in each and every node we are having something called as a value attribute. So you can use the value attribute as well. So whenever like you are planning to use the value attribute, then you should use the method called as an select by value. Okay, so what is the variable name of the select class? We call it as an category. So the category dot select by value, and even the select by value is a parameterized method. We need to pass the string as an input, which is nothing but we should pass the respective attribute value. So in it is always better to use select by value as a first preference. So the reason is like, so whenever we are using the select by intents, and if the developer is adding any new drop down value, so for sure the chances of intents value may get changed, and even the text value may get changed. So for example, like if you take this particular web page called as a currency, so as of now the developer has used the abbreviation in the currency dropdown. So let's say they have used the abbreviation like um, CAD, INR, etc. But in the future, if they are planning to replace with the symbol, so again our test case will fail. So like we need to edit the visible text. But whenever the in-text values change or the text values changed, so whatever the attribute the developer has defined, it won't change. So for example, so in this node, so this is the attribute they have provided. So the attribute value won't change. So these are the properties given by the developers. The value can change, the index can change, but the attribute value won't change. So you can use the corresponding attribute value, and with the help of the value attribute value we can select the value from the drop down. So now let me just run the script and let's see so how it is handling the drop down with the help of the method called as an select by values. Okay, so if it is of an static dropdown, the static dropdown can be handled with the help of the select class. So like in order to use one class in other class, so we should create an object. So that is what I have did. So like I have created the object, and the post creation of the object, like we are utilizing the methods, like we are having the different methods like select by value, select by int text, and select by visible text. So we are using any of the methods and we are injecting the appropriate input, and based upon the input we are injecting, so it is selecting the drop down value. So you could see it has selected the drop down called as an applicants. Okay, so this is how like we will be handling the drop down. So for example, if you are planning to handle this drop down in the book.spicer.com, then what you need to do, the key step is like you need to create the web element, because like we are going to handle one drop down only with the help of the select class. So let's say I'm creating one more select class. Okay, and what is the need of the select class? So we are going to handle this currency. So I can say I'm giving the variable name as like currency dropdown is equal to new of select. So the select class will accept the only the input as a web element, which means like we need to create the web element for this currency dropdown. So you will be right clicking and you will be inspecting, and you will be finding the respective node who is the parent node. So for the parent node we will be creating the web element. So it start with the select tag, and obviously it is an static dropdown. This is the parent node. We are having the id, and the parent node contain multiple child node. So inside the child node the corresponding values are get stored, and for this like we are going to create a web element. So let's say I'm just creating the web element, and I need to provide some variable name. So always provide a meaningful name as it is of an currency dropdown. So I'm just giving the variable name as an currency element is equal to like driver dot find element by dot, as we are using the id, I'm selecting the id and I'm giving the attribute value of the id. At the end, like we are not performing any action, so I'm just giving the semicolon, and we are going to pass the web element inside the select class. So now if I say currency drop down dot select by value or select by index, it will specifically search the, or it will specifically do the operation only inside this currency node. Okay, because like we have created the web element. If I say like index is 3, which indicates like it will select the drop down value based upon the index 0 1 2 3, so the ur will be get selected. So which means like whenever you are going to use the static drop down, whenever you are going to handle the static drop down, it can be handled only with the help of the select class. And you need to create an object, and the select class will accept the web element, and you should create a web element for the respective node. Only with the help of the web element we can restrict the usage of the web driver. So rather than searching the element in the entire DOM structure, we are going to search the element only inside this particular element, which is nothing but only inside this node. So it will check where this id is present, and if the id matches, it will do the operation only inside this respective node. Okay, so then based upon the methods which you are selecting, either the select by value or the select by index or by the visible text, it will do the respective operation over it. So this is how like we will be handling the static dropdown. And we can handle this non-static dropdown with the help of the edge path, so that we can discuss tomorrow. So till this point, does anyone have any doubts?